Hello everyone, and welcome to my very first video. If you're listening to this, thank you for being here. On this channel, we'll be diving into strange stories, internet mysteries, and unsettling encounters from around the web. Today's story comes from Reddit and involves something many people claim to have seen, a creature that looks like a deer, but isn't. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's begin. I recently answered a Ask Reddit thread that reminded me of an unexplained experience we had. During a camping trip with friends years ago, we witnessed something we can't explain. I'll tell this short story, as this may not get viewed, and I'm lazy. I'll tell it more if people are interested. We were sitting around the fire, deep in the forest, off a logging road in British Columbia. We weren't drinking or smoking, as it was a dry trip for a friend. I noticed my good friend go silent and perk up like he was listening. He told us to shut up and listen. The forest was dead quiet, like zero noise. Before, there was frogs and birds and regular forest sounds. He said something like, "Guys, there could be a cougar or bear around. The forest is silent. We might want to move to the cars." Before anyone could react, in the far tree line, maybe 100 feet away, we saw something that completely put all of us in shock. It was a small, red orb, glowing like fire, producing its own light, going between the trees. We just watched it, flabbergasted. It was clearly passing behind and in front of trees. It lasted maybe 20 seconds, then slowly faded. After about 10 seconds, the forest sounds resumed. We all just sat there, like, we took a very quick look and no road or anything. It couldn't have been cars or whatever. It freaked us out so much we left and found a campsite with people and stayed there. Fucking crazy. We still bring it up from time to time when we get together. It gave me nightmares for weeks after. No clue what it could be. Fuck. It's 50 to 50 people. Believe it when we talk about it. A couple additional points before more. We are all experienced campers and have done these trips for years. We've heard weird sounds, bright flashes in the sky, and encountered some sketchy people out in the bush before. Nothing unexplained, but just wild stuff, so we know how to react and think in these situations. The friend who noticed the lack of sound first is in the bush almost 6 months out of the year, as he does forestry for work, so he knows the woods more than anyone. He was terrified to go back to work for months after this experience. He never wanted to talk about it or mention it, as he said it made his hair stand up. So, more about the light experience. When I say the forest was dead quiet, I mean completely quiet. I could hear the fire crackle lightly, but that was it. It was like the air was sucked out of the forest itself. I could hear my heart beating. To go from so much sound to nothing instantly kicked my fight or flight in. It was primal. Something in the back of my head was like, this is a bad situation. And then, seeing that red light, it flickered and shined like a glass ball about the size of a beach ball filled with fire. It was too far away to see clearly, but that's what it was like. Not a light shining. It produced its own light. A faint glow passed onto the trees as it passed. It was traveling about walking speed in between the trees. It was a heavy bushed area, so you'd hear someone walking through. Once my eyes locked onto it, my stomach turned. I felt fear like I never experienced. I'll say this, I almost died a couple of years back, and that wasn't as scary as that light. It was like my brain was trying to figure it out, but couldn't. Once it faded and the forest sounds returned, everything in my body said, "Run, run, run." We barely said anything to each other as we all got up. We exchanged a few, like, "What the fuck was that? Did you see that?" We all confirmed what we saw. There was 6 of us. We decided to get a closer look, I guess, out of the hopes there would be an explanation. There wasn't. We couldn't explain it. That made it worse. We left and found a paid campsite about 20 to 30 minutes away. It was probably 1 a.m. In the morning, the owner came by and touched base with us. People don't usually show up that late. We explained what happened, sort of jokingly, as it just seemed so strange. Her fucking face went stone. She explained that the forest we were in is extremely old growth, which makes sense. My province has some of the oldest forests still standing in the world. She said it's not uncommon to hear stories like that. Asked a bunch of questions, then said it could be something Aboriginal, evil spirits, or something. I have no idea what or why, but it happened, and IDK, what we saw, but it was there. We have, on multiple occasions, talked about it. Whenever we do, I get nightmares. Even just talking about this and writing this out gives me the creeps. So, I think of that. Have you seen the not a deer in the PNW? My friend and I at work were discussing strange things we'd experienced in the places we used to live the other day. So I decided to see if anything similar has happened to anyone else, or if there's stories people have heard similar to mine. I used to live in northern Washington state, having moved there from the Midwest for work. The town I lived in was big enough as it had a university and was close to the Canadian border, but definitely not very populated, and mostly rural, forested, mountainous. Similar to the Midwest where I'm from, there is a good amount of wildlife there. I would see bald eagles, owls, hawks, raccoons, deer, and Crowe.C cougar prints on hiking trails. Thankfully, I never crossed a cougar's path that I know of. In the Midwest, I've seen plenty of deer, can't throw a stick without hitting one, black bears on several occasions, and even been terrifyingly close to a moose once on accident. I'm telling you all this so you know that I'm 100% sure that what my brain told me at first was a deer was not a deer. On the night I saw it, several years ago now, I was heading to work at about 11 p.m. I had been working the overnight shift for several weeks at this point, so I was pretty used to the weird time to be working. And I wasn't especially tired, and had already been awake for more than an hour, getting ready, and had a cup of coffee. My commute consisted mostly of driving through flat land, since it's near the coast, with lots of trees, broken up by some small fields. The road is lit with street lamps, but not enough to always be well lit the entire drive. I was coming around an unlit bend with a field on my right and a thick, treated median on my left. I saw a deer walking away from the road in the field, so I immediately let my foot off the gas and looked for more that might come out of the trees. Rarely did I ever see a lone deer. Always at least 2, sometimes as many as 10 crossing together. The deer was far enough ahead, still walking, that I looked back at it again as I passed by. As I passed it, though, I realized it wasn't a deer at all. It was just very wrong. I really don't know how else to describe it. It had stopped in the field, and it just wasn't a deer anymore, or anything like a deer. I think it was bigger than a deer, at the very least, and I felt like it was observing me as I passed by it. I had that sinking feeling in my gut you get when something you dread is about to happen. It's definitely going to happen. But I went past it, stepped on the gas, and got back to above the speed limit while gripping the steering wheel. Nothing dreadful happened. I got to work fine. I've moved to a different state now, but I used to always look out for the not a deer whenever I drove late at night to and from work. I have no clue what led to if I saw it again. And then I also have no idea. It wasn't the only weird thing that happened to me there, but it is the one I think about the most. The not deer? Well, I got another one for you. That is, if you're up to hearing another one. I didn't weird you out too bad with the first one, did I? Alrighty then. Yay! You ever heard of a not deer? Oh boy howdy. You're gonna love this one. This happened maybe a year or so after I seen that funny looking dog. Lug got over that by then, I think, and didn't have much of a problem going outside late at night anymore. I just kept telling myself I'd had a lot more to drink that night than I thought, and it had me seeing things that wasn't there. So, like I said, this happened maybe a year later. Sometimes I like to take a drive at night and go to this place I know where you can't see nothing built by man. It's this big, empty field, all surrounded by trees, and the whole damn place has been overrun with kudzu vines. Yeah, that stuff. And grows so fast you can almost hear it, climbs up trees and over the ground, and basically covers up everything. You get a grove of trees overgrown with kudzu, and it gets to looking like one of those abandoned jungle temples you see on TV. But what I like about this place is that there's absolutely no man-made light nearby, so it's the best place I know of for stargazing. You go out there with a six-pack on a moonless night with no clouds, and just kick back and watch the sky. I see my share of shooting stars out in that kudzu waste, let me tell you. The only problem with that place, though, is the deer. You see, since there's pretty much no ground cover except for the kudzu, and it's mostly just a big old field, there's not much holding the soil together, and so the whole place is washed out and shot through with these deep gullies and ravines. Some places, it's wide enough and deep enough that you can get a small herd of deer down in one of them. And the whole place is so grown over that it all looks flat until you see deer just start rising right out of the ground. Real unnerving the first time you see it happening, but you get used to it. And the deer out there love eating kudzu, so there's a lot of them out there. But generally, they won't bother you. So I'm out at this place one fine dark night, lounging in the back of my truck and slowly making my way through a six-pack and watching the sky when I hear some rustling noises off to one side. At first, I didn't think nothing of it because it just sounded like deer noises. But it was pretty close by, and after a second, I started getting curious about it. So I found my flashlight and got ready to turn it on, and I waited. I figured if the sounds got closer, I'd see what it was, and if they went away, why I could leave the light off and not have to wait for my vision to readjust. So I wait, and just as I'm starting to think maybe I was just imagining it all, I hear the noises start up again and start coming closer. It couldn't have been more than 20 feet away when I finally decided I wanted to see what was going on out there, because I could also hear it breathing, and it didn't sound quite right for a deer. So I turn on the light and shine it out where I thought the noises was coming from, and just then I see the set of antlers poking up out of the kudzu. It looked like flat ground, but there must have been a gully underneath the vines. Well, because that deer just slid up into view like it was coming up a flight of stairs, right up through the vines and onto the flat ground, not 20 feet from where I was. Now, I'm sure you've seen a deer at least once in your life. They got a certain shape to them, and you can look at it and say with certainty, that's a deer. This wasn't a deer. I started getting that vibe as soon as the antlers came up into view. The antlers was smooth and kind of pointy, like you see on wall-mounted trophy bucks. But at that time of year, all the bucks are still in velvet, so their antlers is kind of rounded at the end and covered in short, velvety fur. This deer's antlers didn't have that. The eyes was wrong, too. You flash a light on a deer's eyes in the dark, and they shine white. This thing's eyes didn't shine at all, just two pools of inky black where the eyes should have been. And they was facing forward. They was where they should have been on the deer's head, but not pointing where they ought to. They was both looking forward at me. The rest of this thing looked more or less like a deer should. Then I saw the legs. They didn't look right at all. I'm pretty sure they each had an extra joint, or an extra bone, or something. They looked all kinds of wrong, and the back legs was too short, and the front ones was too long. And they stuck out to the side, kind of, not bow-legged, but like they wasn't stuck on the right way to begin with. I want to say they moved more like a spider's legs than anything else. They didn't look like spider legs though, just sort of moved that way. So this thing is standing there, close enough to hit with a beer can, just staring at me, and I'm staring at it, and the longer I look at it, the less like a deer it feels. Imagine a little kid, just old enough for the really big box of crayons, and this kid's fairly good at drawing people, but they ain't never seen a deer. So you tell this kid all about deer, how they look, how they act, how many legs and all that, and have this kid draw you a picture of a deer. Now make that into a real thing. That's what I saw that night. I don't know what in the hell it was, but it for damn certain wasn't a deer. It was close, in the same way that a toilet and a fire hydrant are close. You can use the hydrant as a toilet if you need to, but that toilet ain't gonna work like a fire hydrant, no matter how much you want it to. I was real close to just climbing into the cab of my truck and rolling on out of there. And then this not deer stood up on its back legs, stood right up like a man. I didn't think of it at the time, but later it reminded me so much of that funny-looking dog and the way it had stood up. And it's just standing there, and our heads are at the same level now that it's up on its back legs. And then it spoke to me. Opened its mouth up and spoke clear as a bell. It spoke like people do. It said, "There's no turning back from this." And it said it in my own voice. It spoke to me. Opened its mouth up and spoke clear as a bell. It spoke like people do. It said, "There's no turning back from this." And it said it in my own voice. Then it spread its front legs, only they looked a lot more like arms now. Spread them wide open, like it wanted to give somebody a great big hug. And then it tipped its head up to the sky and started screaming. Sounded like half a dozen people all being burned alive at once. And it kept on screaming like that, just standing where it was with its arms out, screaming at the sky. I didn't stay to see if it had anything else to say. I jumped into the cab of my truck and booked it right the hell out of there. Ain't been back since. And that's where the story ends. Let me know in the comments what you think really happened. Subscribe for more Reddit.